It's 6:05, everyone. Hi, I'm Cheryl Smith. We're going to start this meeting. I'm here from the 12th Ward RCO, and Inez Love is here from Faith CDC RCO. She represents the RCO part of this, and I represent the CDR part of this. I know it's a very large project, and there's a lot of things to cover here. First of all, we ask for respect, okay? No one speaks over another person. Allow people to get their answer to their questions or to get the information that they need. Allow the presenter to present their information, and just be respectful of everyone. And the meeting will go a lot better if we all adhere to that. Before we move on, I think Ted Stones is on here. He's my partner as well as the ward leader for, Ted, on here. He's my partner as well as the ward leader for the 12th Ward. And he'll be helping out with this when necessary. Inez has her part to do. This could be a fairly long meeting, or it could be, not short, but it can be very interesting. Let's put it that way. So before we move on, does anyone have any questions about what I said so far? Okay, to let you all know, this meeting is being recorded, okay, for my information, so that when I write my reports, I can have what I need to be as accurate as possible. Before we move on again, how many near neighbors on here? I need to know your address, okay, and whether or not you received a letter from the developer if you are within 250 square feet of the property. Unmute yourself and give me your name and address. Allison, I know you're not a near neighbor, so I'm just asking for near neighbors right now. Quintana Shapiro family. Unmute yourself. I can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, it was saying the host wasn't letting us unmute ourselves. Seemed like a setting we were trying to. Hey, yeah, I'm Eric Spiro. This is
Shayla and Suna, and we're at 78 East Church Lane.
Thank you. Church Lane neighbor. It's just more Church Lane neighbor. Yes, you're waving. You can't unmute? Hold on. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Great. Hi, Cheryl. My name is Jared Anderson. I live at 59 East Church Lane.
Thank you.
And I live in the same house, 59 East Church Lane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anna Albrecht.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Albrecht. I'm at 203 East Church Lane, and I did not receive any notification, except from my RCO.
Okay, thank you. Gina Michaels.
Hi, I'm Gina Michaels, and I'm right around the corner on Lena Street. I did not receive any notification. I was a property owner at 90 East Church Lane and 7880 East Church Lane for many years. And I run a business at on Lena Street, which is right around the corner, that will be very impacted by the parking situation, and I deeply care about the neighborhood.
Thank you. Craig Giamencio.
Hi there, my name is Autumn McClintock. Craig is my spouse. We're at 74 East Church Lane, We got the flyers for this meeting, but I don't think we received anything official from anyone.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Forrest Toomey, Forrest?
Hi, yes, representing Historic Germantown. We did receive an official notice from the law firm. We have the property on fronting Market Square and goes a good way down Church Lane, including our cottage and parking lot.
Thank you. Okay, I got you. Okay, Mr. Jen, I know you're representing the developer.
Yes.
CHB?
Chagai Bader.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
That's Mr. Bader is the equitable owner of the property and the applicant for this project.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Haskins, I have you. Let's see. I don't know why everybody is muted and I can't unmute you. Hold on. Ms. Haskins, I'll come back to you. I don't know why it's not letting me unmute you. I don't know why you can't unmute yourself either.
Now I can.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I don't know if the lady who's waving down in the corner is being recognized. The name is Elizabeth on the screen.
I'm going in order of what I see. Hold on. Amanda.
I am unmuted. Thank you.
What did you receive a letter?
No, I am not a near neighbor. I was staying quiet, but thank you.
Just a minute. Hold on, please. Okay, hold on. Okay. Let's see. I had Amanda, Matt B. You disappeared. Matt. Okay, Jim.
Jim is muted. You can't.
Oh, it's telling me that the host is not allowing people to unmute. My name is Matt B. I'm in the 200 block of Collins Street. I'm not a near neighbor, but I'm close.
Thank you.
Hi, my name
Okay,
is
I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Sorry. This is Jim Dragoni. I'm a near neighbor. I live at 69 East Church Lane, directly across from the site.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Aya.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I live around the corner. I'm on Germantown Avenue. The parking is already horrendous around here, so I'm not in agreement with.
Okay, we'll get to that. I just want to know if you're a near neighbor right now. Thank you.
I'm a neighbor. You're welcome.
Who did I miss? Yes.
I'm gonna have the folks raise their hands who actually received a notice from Mr. Jen or a flyer in the door, because the others are not near neighbors. Only the ones that received those notices are the near neighbors. So my hand is up. I'm a near neighbor. I'm around the corner on Earlham Street. I don't want to give my name, but I did receive the notices.
Okay.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Mr. White, and I'm a near resident for 36 years at 58 East Earlham Street.
Thank you. Elizabeth, you've been waving.
I've been waving because I couldn't unmute, but now I can. So I don't know what happened, but thanks. It's good to be heard. I'm Elizabeth Walmsley, and I live at 53 East Church Lane. I'm actually even more directly across from this than Jim is, if that's possible. I'm the only one on the block with a driveway. So I'm directly, like literally across from the gates.
Okay. Again, as Mr. Richardson said, because there's so many people on here, raise your hands. If you're use the raise your hand icon to let me know that you are near neighbors.
Point of order, Cheryl. Could we also know if they received their letters certified from the law firm or from?
They wouldn't have been certified.
It has to be proof of mail.
I have the proof of mailing. We haven't gotten to the presentation part yet.
I just wanted to make sure we know whether everybody, since we already had a mix up on that mailing.
I've asked if you received the letter when I first started this. So yes, I would like to know if you're raising your hand that you are a near neighbor. Okay, thank you. And those near neighbors received letters.
Yes, okay. I did receive the letter. I received 4 copies of the letter.
Okay, we have, okay.
Raise our actual hand or some sort of
No, it's a raise your hand option on the, on your Zoom link at the bottom. It's reactions. I think it's under reactions, but it allows you to raise your hand. Okay, we can move on anyway, because there are enough near neighbors on here for us to move on. We cannot have a meeting unless there are near neighbors on the line. Okay, so we're going to move on. If you have anything to say while the anything is being presented, you can put it in the chat and we'll go through that. But right now, we're going to allow the developer to present. And your client is here, so I would like you to introduce him again, because I'm sure there's going to be questions of him. And then we're going to move on to, and I'm doing the CDR part, and this is doing the RCO part. So we're going to do this CDR part, and then we're going to go to the RCO part. If you know, and you all know, or you may not know, but you have 3 votes or 3 options: support, don't support, or non-support, and oppose. Okay.
On the CDR, though, there is no vote. It's whether
there is no vote. Correct. Thank you.
You give your opinions about the building, and you know, and the things that, and Mr. Jen can explain it as well. Go ahead, Zen.
Okay. I think you have to make him host, Charles.
Oh yeah.
Because he has to share.
Yes, so good evening. My name is Zinjin. I'm the attorney for this project. Earlier, Mr. Shagabrader raised his hand and spoke briefly. He's the applicant and equitable owner representing the developer. And we also have Mr. Kevin O'Neill here, who is the architect. And some of the architectural related questions, I will bring him on to help assist in answering. And again, this is a 2-piece application because of the size of the application. One part is, of course, a zoning application with refusal. The second part is that because of the size of the project, it has to go through what they call the civic design review, which is a separate board that comes before the actual zoning board hearing. And the civic design review generally is for the larger projects to review the design of the project, along with the planning commission to give feedback on various items such as aesthetics, access, environmental friendliness and greenery and those kind of points. But we will have, and I will soon share with you, both the rendering plans as well as the architectural plans of what we're proposing. But first, I understand Ms. Smith said that we want to go into the CDR first. I think it'll be easier for everybody to fully understand if we at least show the refusal first as well. And then we will go into the CDR items once we discuss the base refusal that brought us before you today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first share with you the refusal related to this application. It's now up on my screen. Can everyone see it on your screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So this application is for a new structure which will have a gross square footage of about 173,000 square foot on an existing lot that is about 33,000 square feet. Maximum height not to exceed 60 feet with pilot houses and elevator access to the balcony. Now, the zoning district of this property is I2 industrial. So based on the I2 industrial and our proposed use, which is multifamily, 148 dwelling units with 74 interior parking spaces and 50 1A class bicycle spaces in an accessible route for this building. So for the building, we're proposing essentially it's a 1-to-1 parking ratio of, a 2-to-1 parking ratio of unit to parking. So the refusals that we received are based on the zoning district. And the first refusal item is, of course, that household living is prohibited in an industrial district. Second refusal is a dimensional for the rear yard, which the parking at the required rear yard depth, which is required 9 foot, the proposed is 0 feet. We will go through this on the plans with you to better explain what the refusal is actually showing. Dimensional standard for industrial district for side yard depth, parking at required side yard depth, 6 foot, 0 feet proposed. The area of the roof decks, which permitted is 125 square foot and 165 square foot. Our proposal is 173 square foot and 560 square foot. So we have essentially 3 dimensional refusals and 1 use refusal on this particular project. So what I'm going to share now with you is the basic zoning plans that was submitted to the examiner at LNI, and that will show a little bit about the layout that we are proposing for this property. I'm going to zoom it out first, and we'll zoom back in. So first of all, from the standpoint of the property, this is the property in question, 42 to 68 Church Lane. And these are the streets that are on either direction and across from the property. So what my client's proposing is a design that is essentially an apartment building with an interior court and interior parking spaces on the ground floor. There are also the gym and other things that are amenities for the building, as well as a few of the units. And then from there, as you go up, it would be residential units of different types, including studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and again, amenities and the outdoor, interior court, which actually provides light and outdoor. And this is the roof plan, which essentially contains the access to the roof, as well as we're going to go with the green roof, which I'll show on the rendering plans. So from the standpoint of the unit designs, you have the 1 bedroom designs. This is the type that would face the interior court. This is the 1 bedroom design that would face Church Lane. And then you have 2 bedroom designs that would face the court versus 2 bedroom design that faces Church Lane. So from elevation standpoint, again, a lot of the parking would be on the first level, which is, again, contained within the building. And you have a court you have the two access pilot houses as well as the elevator access. So that's the basic plan of the design. What I'm going to show you now is a rendering of what this could look like to give you a better view of the concept of what this actually may look like once completed. And based on that part, I will also bring on, Mr. O'Neill to kind of address some of the design aspects that we wanted to do and why we went with this. And also, at that point, I think we can start to answer some questions. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions relating to this. So what I have now put up before you is a rendering, a conceptual rendering. And this is something that goes to the CDR portion of the application, because the Civic Design Review Board, essentially what they look at is a lot of the design aspects, the actual look at the building, the materials, and give us feedback on what they feel would be the best in essence of a look, access, and environmental impact and other items. So this is also part of what we would be submitting to the Civic Design Review Board, whereas the Zoning Board looks particularly at the use of the lot itself and the dimensional variances based on the zoning of the property. So those two boards will both be involved with reviewing this project. So this is essentially, I'm sorry, I jumped a little bit there. This is essentially the rendering design from various angles of what this property could look like, including the style of the windows, access, the sidewalk. This is the rendering of the interior court. So as you can see, there will be a courtyard in the middle of the building. So the building itself would surround the courtyard, but there will be light let in on the inside, so that both sides, both the ones that face the street side and also the units that faces the courtyard, they all have access to sunlight. It also gives the building's tenants a place outdoors to congregate if needed or to relax. Now, this is kept in the middle of the building, thus avoiding having a lot of people showing up for example, at the back of the building, where a rear yard would normally be in a smaller size building or in a single family situation. So again, this is various angles of the court. This is a overhead view. Now, we're looking to do green roof, again, adding to the greenery of the overall project, so that there's green surfaces at the top to improve, in essence, the amount of greenery that is being impacted by a project like this. So this is essentially the rendering aspect. And these, other than the first floor, which will contain the parking, the upper floors are essentially all residential layout of apartment units. And again, the total number of units, we're looking at 148 units. The total amount of interior parking spaces we're providing is 74 parking spaces, including handicap spaces, and in addition, 50 bike spaces as well. So that's the basic idea behind this project. Here are some of the material layouts: brick facade, lap siding, metal siding on the inside where it faces the court, privacy screens, storefront style windows for the lower access windows and lower view of the building, some railings and garage panels. So these are some of the materials that will be used as part of this project. So again, the overhead view kind of shows you what we're being refused for partially, is that what we're looking at is the rear of the building and the side of the building, because of the way it's set up to put the court in the middle. We're not leaving a lot of rear yard space according to the city code. So that's two of the items that we're being refused for, is the rear yard depth, the side yard depth, particularly related to the parking spots as well. And the primary refusal, of course, is still going back to the industrial zoning versus a residential use. But I do want to point out that throughout the city, in every part of the city, a lot of industrial land that is currently sitting vacant and unused are, in fact, being developed into residential uses. And it's not an uncommon request from developers throughout the city to revitalize the industrial zone piece into a residential use. So with that, what I'd like to do is hand it back over to our host. And, and I have, again, Mr. O'Neill's here with me, and we'll be happy to try to answer more direct questions relating to this project that is before you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, but please, in order that you are called, please raise your hand and please mute yourself if you're not asking a question so that everybody can be heard. We won't have any background noise. Okay. I have
Cheryl, excuse me. It should be the near neighbors who are actually the ones asking the questions, because you've got a lot of folks on here from outside of the neighborhood.
Everyone hear that? Okay. Dr. Aya? Dr. Aya? Do you have a question? You have to unmute. Okay.
Yes. My question is, why is there only a 2-to-1 parking ratio? Because parking is already tight in this area, in this community.
Well, as a general rule with parking within the city, this is an industrial zone property, so parking actually wasn't, as you can see, parking itself wasn't a refusal, but we were looking at it from a residential standpoint, and the general rule for residential development, if it were in a residential district, would be about a 3-to-1 ratio is generally what it's expected of residential developments for parking when parking is triggered. So we're actually trying to do one better by doing at least a 2-to-1 ratio rather than a 3-to-1 ratio with parking. And my client is aware that parking is a concern, and we are also, that's why we're trying to provide interior parking as part of the project at a 2-to-1 ratio. I think I saw someone in chat says 1-to-1 ratio parking. The problem with 1-to-1 ratio parking here is that really we don't have enough land space to do 1-to-1 parking. I'm sorry? Yeah, so we don't have enough space to do 1-to-1 parking based on the lot size and layout. We are basically using most of the first floor space pretty much as parking to give the 74 spaces that is being proposed as part of this project.
So why not just make 74 apartments? Just make it, why do you have to have 140 something apartments and only half that in parking?
Well, there's a cost to building, to the overall building, and 74 apartments from the cost of development would then reduce the ability to do reduce the ability to provide as much of the amenities and other things. So if we reduce it to 74 units, then the use itself, the development cost itself, as converted to the parking spaces, 74 parking spaces, it would reduce the ability of the project to really be financially viable. As you know, everything's expensive now. The cost of the materials, the cost of the interest rate on the loans, everything has gone up. So there's always a cost that has to be analyzed as part of any of these developments. And this is a rather large development that, from a cost standpoint, 74 units may not make sense because it's a cost of acquisition as well for my client.
Okay, go ahead to the next person. I don't want to take up all the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it Wally? You have your hand up? Dr. I, you can put your hand down. That way I don't get confused, please. WWALI. Okay. Anna Fleming, are you a near neighbor?
Well, Wally just Wally
Wally
just unmuted us.
Right. Okay. Wally?
Yes.
Are you a near, I'm sorry, are you a near neighbor?
I'm 81 East Church Lane.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And are there going to be stores or anything within the building included in the project?
I don't believe there is any stores included in the project, partly because to put in the commercial space would mean actually traffic would be more impacted and more parking issues as part of the development, because the first floor would be the primary space that would be viable for any kind of commercial use. If we were to put that in, a large enough first floor space for commercial would also take away from what we're trying to do on the interior with the parking. So it's always a balancing act with the design, but as of right now, there's no proposal for the commercial.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you. You can put your hand down and mute yourself again. Thank you. Anna Fleming, you can unmute.
Hello, everyone.
Are you a near
My father is 72 East Wellens. So I'm on his behalf asking his question. His question was, number one, how does this project compare size-wise to other new projects in the area? And two, how is this going to affect property value, or how do you foresee this affecting property value?
So, Kevin, if you're here, can you, I know that the architect might be able to better answer the first question regarding other projects in the area. Kevin, can you unmute, or someone needs to unmute you?
Yes, hello.
Yes. Yeah, so Kevin, when this project was being designed, did you guys look at some of the other projects in the area that are being developed? And the question was, are there similar sized projects?
Sure. Yeah, there are a number of similar 4 and 5 story buildings being developed along Germantown Avenue and in the general neighborhood. I don't have specific unit counts on how many apartments are in each of those buildings, but I'm fairly confident that this is a larger building, but I'm confident that there are a number of other buildings of this scale that are being developed in the neighborhood. Yes.
And from the standpoint of the second question about the value of the properties, obviously a building of this size would it would be a new building. It would bring additional residents into the area. From the city standpoint, of course, the building would be evaluated at a value based on its construction and other costs. So based on that, it generally, from an impact standpoint, should be increasing the value of properties in the neighborhood. But how much would that be, or how great the impact would be, that is speculative at this point, since we haven't even finalized the design of the project at this point.
Okay, one last question. How do you see this impacting the property taxes for the residents?
Well, this building would be, so first of all, if you're a resident that owns your property, and it's a single family house, for example, next to this building, they would not be evaluated the same way. So the assessments would be completely different. So generally, assessments that impact you the most are similar type buildings that are built next to you. So if a single family house is built that is assessed at $800,000, when you own a single family house right next door that was originally assessed at $300,000, that would directly impact you. This building will be assessed for its size buildings, and it would be taxed accordingly. So I don't believe that it's going to have a direct impact on single family, smaller properties that are right, that's basically on a different level. Plus homeowners have their own homestead exemptions, which obviously a commercial building and a homeowner's building are not treated the same way when it's assessed. To say that it absolutely will not impact, I can't say that. I'm just saying that they were not assessed at the same level.
Thank you.
Jim Dragoni is trying to raise his hand and he can't.
Mr. Toomey, just a minute. Mr. Toomey?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks. I had a question about kind of a two-part question. If this building were fully occupied, what is the number of people you expect to live there with a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms? And what are the rates that you expect to charge tenants?
Kevin, do you have based on the bedroom counts, how many occupants would the expected number be with the units all filled based on the unit counts?
Yes, I can get you a total bed count. Give me just 1 second.
And presumably some 1-bedroom units would be occupied by 2 people. I assume you have to do pro formas, financial pro formas on this. You're not guessing at all.
So we have 283 total beds in the building.
And how many 1-bedrooms do we have?
There are 13 1-beds and 135 2-beds.
So the total number of people is going to be, what, 25, 50% higher than that?
It could be, yes.
Yeah. And what are the rental rates you expect to charge?
Mr. Bader, have you done the rental rates estimates at this point with this property? I think at this point we're still actually in the process of acquiring the property, but do you have an idea what the rental rate may even be?
I believe the 2-bedroom is going to be around 1,400 to 1,600 approximately, more or less.
Okay, and the 1-bedrooms will be a little bit less and the studios will be even less.
Yes, correct.
What's in your pro forma?
Something like that, this number.
Pardon me?
Approximately this number, between 1,400 to 1,600 per 2-bedroom, around 1,200 to 1,300 for 1-bedroom, and around 900 to 1,000 for a studio.
Thank you. Mr. Forrest,
you didn't say how many studios.
Kevin, can you give the breakdown of the studio to 1-bedroom as well?
So yeah, as I just mentioned, there are 135 2-bedrooms and 13 1-bedrooms. There aren't technically any studio apartments. There are some smaller 1-bedroom units that are 520 to 700 square feet. But the smaller side of that is obviously 520. Technically speaking, there are no studios. Those are all, each unit has a bedroom with a separate sleeping area. So it's all 1-bedroom and 2-bedrooms.
Thank you.
May I speak? I couldn't put my hand up, so I'm going to just have to interject here.
No, Mr. Jim, I will call on you. I'm sorry you can't put your hand up, but just let me get back to you because I wanted to ask Mr. Forrest a question, please.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Forrest, I didn't get your address on this one. What's your address?
We're the corner property at 5501 to 3 Germantown Avenue that runs down a quarter of the way down Church Lane. So it includes multiple parcels on Church Lane and Market Square. It's a Germantown Historical Society property.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Jim. I'm Miss Anna, I'm going to get back to you. Jim? You muted yourself.
Okay, how's that?
Go ahead.
I have a question for the owner of the person who's attempting to own this property. Is it true that you own the property adjacent to it?
Mr. B?
Yeah, I don't only the owner on the next door, and also it's not involved in this case.
All right, wait a minute. So you do own the property next door. Is that what you just said?
No, I know the owner and I represent some of them.
But you don't own the property next door.
We have like a partnership, but it's not like it's not something we go to like, no, it's not involved in this case. So you can tell me it's involved, I can answer that.
All right, I don't fully understand what you're saying, but my question specifically is, are you planning to develop the property next door as well? Because what triggers the question is I see in the original plans, the plans for the building that we're discussing, that they left one of Nolan buildings standing, right? So in other words, we're not just talking about one project, we're really talking about two. You got 148 units there, and how many next door to it? How many units next door?
Again, I say, we come to discuss about specific this project, and next door, I know they go to develop, I believe, around 20 something units.
Okay, so it's 20 plus 148. You believe it's 20, but it could be more or less?
So the next door, is the next door unit, as far as you know, is that a by right project? I mean, I'm not aware of a refusal on that one, so.
Correct.
It's by right. Well then, I think that that's a very important factor to consider here, that what you're asking us to approve is going to be an addition to what's already going up by right. Number one. Number two, it seems to me that there's been very little consideration given for the space requirements. This is a small block. There aren't that many people living on it. I was the block captain here for 15 years, so I know almost everybody on this block. And I can tell you that nobody that I've talked to is in favor of this project. It'll block out the sky. It'll block out the light. It'll block out the tree line. It is massive. And, you know, you talk about other projects of this scale going on around Germantown. From what I understand, these other apartment units that are going up on Chilton Avenue and are like more like 40 units, not 148. And those are on massive commercial strips. This is a residential block that you're talking about adding, what, 300 to 500 people?
Something like that.
Well, I would postulate that you don't understand this neighborhood. To take 300 to 500 people, dump them onto a block that only has maybe 40 people living on it is too much of a shock to our system. This building is too big. It sits right up against the road. If I could see a two-story building, I could see townhouses, like the owner of Nolan's lied to us and said that there were going to be 24 townhouses because she didn't want us to get up in arms over this, and she knew we would. Okay, so 24 townhouses, fine. A two-story building with landscaping in the front that sits back off the road, fine, but not this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anna?
Hi, everyone. Jim actually hit a lot of my points. Yeah, as a design professional, I have been on the other side of these meetings. So my brain is just geared towards some concerns about how it relates to the context. And I think Jim really nailed a couple of those points. I think specifically the fact that there's no setback from the street. Even in your presentation, you have on page 5 your zoning table. So you should be aware that the setback in the front yard should relate to the adjacent properties, which are, I believe, RM1 and then RSA 5 across the street. So that's one of my main notes. And then I think we touched a little on it, but in Tomi's question about the rates, but would you consider including affordable housing? Because those rates are not appropriate for people who are living in Germantown and who, I really wonder who you think is going to move into these. Is it people moving down from Brooklyn? Is it people, who want to change what Germantown is, and 300 of them all at once? So those are my main concerns.
I'm
question
sorry.
Question about affordable housing, I guess, would be what I would like a response to.
Okay, generally speaking, that's something we'll have to go back and my clients would have to talk among themselves to decide. Affordable housing, in most projects like this, if it is something that's added in, it tend to give a bonus to the unit counts, but this one's rather unique because it's an I2. So it's something we can look into, but I'm not sure what the answer is at this point. But it's something that obviously was brought up, so we will definitely go back and discuss that possibility.
Anything else, Ms. Anna? I know you had a few things. That's the only one you want answered specifically?
No, my other questions were about the relation to the street, whether there would be any possible changes to that, because I don't think it's appropriate, as well as considering a smaller scale, which I think would satisfy everybody here.
From a smaller scale standpoint, I mean, I heard what Jim said earlier. So, again, we're scaling it down and adjusting it is something that, again, my client and I will talk along with the architect. Scaling it back to townhomes, I don't think that would, again, it has to be looked at.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm not saying townhomes, a few smaller apartment buildings with, a driveway into them, one smaller apartment building that's significantly set back from the street, so that it's not, impeding views, making the road feel more claustrophobic than it already does. I noticed in your renderings, you don't show the fact that everybody parks their car halfway up the sidewalk already. So I will leave it at that and lower my hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Neighbor. It just says neighbor.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, are you a near neighbor? I need your address.
Well, I'm on Earlham Street, which is right around the corner. And my backyard is directly impacted by Nolan. I'm like right behind it. And so when I have this big towering building now, what's it going to do for my backyard space? Like, I'm not going to have the sun view. What's that going to look like for me? Like, why such a big structure in a small neighborhood? Because Earlham Street is very tiny. We have 10 houses on our block, basically. And we're going to now put this massive thing around the corner, which impacts my living space in my backyard. So I know there's not an answer for that, but that's my concern. That's basically what I want to say.
Do you have an answer
Kevin,
for that?
from the layout standpoint, how close is the building as far as its positioning to the houses, backyard of the houses on Earlham Street?
Oh, it's directly, like there is a little walkway, which is like the fire exit. Like if you have a fire and you can get out of there. But there's a wall and then there's the building. Like we've always heard the milling that happened at Nolan's, like we look directly into Nolan's windows from our backyard. So it's right there. So you didn't give me a view. What am I going to be looking at? Am I looking at parking? Am I looking at the big building? What's going to be in my face?
So let me, Kevin, is there a renderings of that direction in your packet?
So I think the most relevant view would be the aerial view. Now that is taken from Church Lane, so it's tough to really, I don't have a direct view of that elevation from the other angle, but I think in terms of massing, you can at least see the relationship there. We are set back from the property line there. We aren't building right on the property line. So there would be a setback between the property line and the building. And then as far as the treatment and how that would appear, what the design would look like, it would be comparable to some of these other views, these side and rear elevation views. If you can, show that packet, that would give you a similar example. We plan to treat that elevation similarly to the others.
So it'll be basically a brick facade with the windows.
No, it would not be brick. So that's the Church Lane view. If you keep scrolling through to the elevations of the side and rear, I think they're a little bit later on in the packet. That would be a little bit closer to what we'd see.
See this.
Yeah.
Let me know when you stop.
Then just so that you understand, Earlham does abut right to that property. So
To the lot, yes.
I was over there yesterday, so it abuts directly to the property.
Yes, it does.
So Kevin, which one is the most close to that look from these particular drawings? I think this one
that north elevation would be closest. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd be looking, so people sitting on their terraces would now be looking down into my backyard.
Well, sure. I mean, there are limited balconies on some of these units, and balconies that are, anything above 2 or 3 stories. There would be, you would be able to see in different directions. That is correct.
So I lose my privacy in my backyard. Okay. Interesting. Guess that's all I needed to say.
Thank you. Donna Drake.
Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Drake. I'm the rector's warden, meaning I am sort of the right-hand person to the priest at Historic St. Luke's Church, which is located at 5400 block of Germantown Avenue. And boy, do have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. I just want to first thank Anna Albrecht and Jim for raising some items that I was a little concerned about. I think you did a wonderful job of that. I have to say, respectfully, and I mean this respectfully, that I'm not sure that in terms of this building and the design that we're getting as much forthright answers or information as we could. I cannot believe that the architects who are as proficient and skilled as they are, can't tell us about proximity without referring to something. You looked at it, you made the drawings, you know what they are. Having said that, one of my first questions was, I couldn't quite make out the proximity of the new building and the parking lot and how it will affect a butt or what proximity it is to St. Luke's Church. We have a historic graveyard. We have a backyard space. And, you know, the back of our parish hall is actually on, I think you might call it a fire lane. Yeah. The parking lot that's there facing Church Lane. And I was going to ask, you know, how does the parking in the building actually affect us? And what will that be? And now I'm hearing that, you know, maybe I'm mistaken, but those parcels behind us are actually co-owned by the current developer and someone else, and that there's a possibility that things could be happening back there. And, you know, unfortunately, I realize, you know, you buy what's for sale when you know it's for sale, but it's just disheartening that we didn't know about this before this. And a couple of things that were mentioned make me wonder. Mr. Jin, if I said that correctly, you mentioned something about the developers are in the process of acquiring. What does that mean?
So they're under contract to purchase the property.
So it's not purchased at this time.
Well, they have a pretty substantial deposit down on it, yes. But it's not purchased at this time, correct.
Okay. Yeah, because I could put a deposit on the house. It doesn't mean the sale's going to go through, but we all know that. So in terms of this building itself, I did see some comments in the chat, you know, that it seems as if the building, as modern and pleasing to some as it might be, it really does not speak to the neighborhood that you're putting it in. I mean, essentially, it looks as if Church Lane becomes a driveway for the building. And, you know, 5 stories with the bottom story being parking is really substantial to put on that small block. But you also mentioned that you'd go back and look at that. So are these renderings, are these the final renderings? I mean, are you looking at potentially listening to some of the concerns here and maybe making some adjustments to that?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Answer that?
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Shiga.
All right, yeah, I just wanted to, thanks for the question, Donna. Certainly, we're willing to incorporate any feedback that we receive. We're open to ideas. We're open to criticism. We've actually worked on some other projects where we received, you know, significant feedback from the neighborhood, and we modified the design significantly. We feel that we improved the projects in all those cases, and we're certainly willing to do that here. And then just also, you know, to address the first part of your comment, if there was a specific question that I might have missed, I'm trying to keep up with a lot of different things and answer some of the chat questions. But if there was a question, I'm happy to answer it. I have you know, this whole 50-page packet here, and I'm able to scroll through the different views. If there was something, I think there's a question about proximity. If you need a specific measurement or dimension, I'm happy to give that to you. Just let me know.
And I appreciate that. And I don't want to belabor anything. I do appreciate that offer. It's just, even the drawing itself just indicates that it's like sidewalk front. So I think it was a little bit about that. And then when the question from the neighbor about how close would it be to her backyard, you know, it's a concern. I mean, this is a small town neighborhood in a big city. And, you know, the folks who have been here for generations. And I would say that just to please keep in mind that our church has been a fixture in this community for nearly 220 years, and we serve an older population who is going to need to have access and, you know, parking, et cetera, to their place of worship, in addition to the community services that we provide. So I will leave it there, but I will say that I do have a few concerns about, you know, some of the things I mentioned.
And Don, I'm sorry, I jumped right on. I'm in Donna's team. I'm Jimmy Reed. I'm the counselor at St. Luke Church. And the question that Donna forgot to ask you was, that driveway right now that you guys have as yours is a driveway that our church get delivery for our food bank in, and also our trash trucks come back there now. And I'm not sure that's part of the property, or you guys claimed it? I'm not sure, but I was under the impression that that was egress for the stores on the back part of Germantown Avenue, also for St. Luke Church. Because our trash truck come there now and pick up our trash 3 days a week, and we have deliveries back there for our food pantry, and then it's concerned. And I will say that you guys in the process of buying the property behind us, but we was lied to, because St. Luke Church was willing to buy that property behind us at market rate for our parishioners to make a parking lot. So we're not too happy with that. I will say that out loud. The owners was approached by our property manager that runs our property years ago about or ever thought about selling our property. St. Luke Church wanted to purchase that property to build a parking lot for our parishioners as agent and have a catwalk over to our church. So we're not too happy with that. I just want to put that out there. The building is massive, and the parishioners are really, really upset how big it is. I just wanted to say them two things to you. That's all. And I'll pull it back.
So we're getting the message here about the size of the project, the massive size of the building based on the rendering that you were shown so far. So we understand, we did hear you on that. Certainly, I will go back with my client and the architectural professionals and take a look at that to see what can be done to, reduce the massing of the building. But again, we are hearing everything you're saying. We're taking notes, and this is being recorded. So obviously, we'll go back and review everything that was said here.
Carol, this is Yvonne Haskins. I represent a number of these near neighbors, and I've had my hand up for some time. I do have some questions before we run out of time. We can't hear you, Cheryl.
Cheryl, you're muted.
You're muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going in order of the hands that are raised. So your name, you're slowly sliding over. So I have 3 other people before you, and I will get to you. We're not going to run out of time. Okay, we still have the RCO part, and I'm going to. I think I have 4 or 5 more people, and then we're probably going. Excuse me. We're going to go to the RCO part. Okay, and then that'll be Inez's part. But remember, the CDR is for presentation of the information. Okay, the RCO part is the vote part. We do not vote for the CDR. Okay, so I understand that you represent some of the neighbors, but these are also neighbors who are speaking. So please just wait your turn. Thank you.
I will lower my hand.
Thank you. Church Lane neighbor, I'm sorry.
I'm good, thank you. My name is Jarrett. I live at 59 East Church Lane, directly across from the entrance into what was Nolan. I'll repeat some of the same. I share some of the same concerns that my neighbors have shared, my neighbors and friends have shared on the call about the density, about the size, about the number of units. I really want to see something across from me. I don't want to have an empty industrial lot. And I do think there are some considerations about the context, to repeat Anna's word, that are really important. I also wanted to just point out that in the renderings that the architect showed us, there actually is a slope on Church Lane, which is not present in the visual. So if the building is directly at the edge of the property line, I mean, it actually sort of toward where Jim lives at 61 or 69, it actually almost adds what looks like an additional story on the building. So if you look up, you can imagine it would go up almost visually 6 floors because there's a slope in the street which you cannot see in any of the renderings. I also shared a concern, my friend Jahan in the chat shared a concern about green space and trees. The property is huge, and I think some vegetation would go a long way to soften the way it could look and feel on the street. Ms. Drake mentioned that it would feel like a driveway. This church could feel like a driveway to this property, which I think is not at all how one wants to feel like when they're at home. But if there's this beautiful private courtyard, I wonder what it would look like or feel like to shift the building and put that courtyard in the front so that neighbors could also benefit from access to the green space, or not access to, but even just visual access to. We know about the tree canopy and the importance of street trees. If there could be some street trees incorporated, that would be really vital, I think, for cooling, for the neighborhood, for making it sort of visually softer from the street. And I share Jim's concern about the neighboring, the adjacent property being owned by, or in partnership with, or in some sort of arrangement with the developer of this property. I'll also point out that the property that the GFS teachers park on currently, and the green space that is also next to that. So we've got the project proposal, the building that is left undeveloped next to the project, which has the rounded top on top of it, where no one stored had their offices, and then the 2 or 3 adjacent vacant lots are all owned by somebody based at 65 Buck Road in Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania, which is the same address as Olympia Holdings, which is the proposed owner of this property. So I could be wrong, but it looks like the same person owns Nolan, the rounded top building next to it, and then the 1, 2, 3 lots that are next to that. And I can only imagine that if we say yes, an unchecked yes to this project, are we opening ourselves up to additionally really intense saturated projects all next to it? And if we think that this is too much, it might feel a lot. I mean, it sounds like if this could be by right, I feel like they might do something very similar for the adjacent property. So I'm concerned about saying an unchecked yes to this, because if that means they do what they want across the street, what would they do then next to those properties? So thanks for the chance to be heard. I really appreciate your time.
So with regard to the street trees and some of the greenery that you have mentioned, we're already looking into that. In fact, that was a discussion that was had today between the architect's office and myself about street trees. And so we are already looking into that, and certainly it's something that we'll make more effort into, especially if there's going to be a shift in the way the size of the building or the setbacks. Now, the other piece about the court, light and air is required for bedrooms. So I think the court design has its purpose because of the way the building's laid out. To put the court in the front would basically redesign the entire structure. That's something I'll leave to Kevin to discuss with my client and myself, but that might be a lot tougher as a proposal than it sounds. So, but we are definitely going to look at the additional greenery. And because of the greenery and benefit of the greenery, this is part of the reason why the entire structure is proposed with a green roof, so that there is greenery, even though the surface underneath is a building. The green roof is one of the ways that these buildings that are being put up in the city would still give a little bit of green space, and not just like a big wooden roof deck that everybody hangs out on, but rather have green space up top as a benefit, hopefully, to the surrounding area as well. And that's mostly for water runoff and just having greenery. It's not a visual thing. Obviously, you won't be able to see it as much.
Does that answer your question?
That responds to my concerns. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Oscar. Oscar, are you still there?
Hey there, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just had some concerns that I wanted to express, just as a local historic preservationist, and I am a member of the Germantown Historical Society, which is within a stone's throw of this, and I attend the Germantown meeting, which is nearby, and this is really right in the heart of our community. With Market Square right there. This building is going to be the backdrop of Market Square, which is one of the beauty spots of our neighborhood. And I just feel like the building is completely out of scale. In addition to what all of the neighbors brought up, the near neighbors, it also, design-wise does not speak to the historic context at all. It's troubling that after Nolan demolished half the block over the last 100 years, that and they've now used it for as long as they need to for their business. Now they're going to just try to like get as much money out of it as they can, and then leave the community with like a behemoth sitting there, and just essentially ruin the historic viewshed of Market Square. When this could be a project that would enhance the street and enhance the area for everyone, not just for, for a few people. So it's pretty frustrating. And so I really hope that the property owner will go back to the drawing board and maybe go back to the seller and, say, look, we really need to bring the scale of this way down, because you're literally within like less than a block of two national historic landmarks, and the entire community is concerned about this. And it's not just the near neighbors; it's going to be a lot of people in Germantown. So this really is not a one and done kind of meeting, and to me, this needs a total rewrite. And I just can't begin to list all of the outrage that I think that there is about this kind of proposal, and the complete lack of sort of empathy to where you are located and the people around you. Thank you.
Thank you. Guest. Okay. I'm going to go, Yvonne Haskins. Okay, guest, you've already.
I'll defer to Yvonne, and I'll come after Yvonne. Thank you.
Okay, Yvonne.
Thank you. I had several questions of Mrs. Jen.
Yes.
Well, first of all, this is to Cheryl, I guess. We have 96 near neighbors on the list, and yet you've limited this meeting to only 100. And it's really serious that we don't have the capacity to hear.
Okay, let me answer that before you go on and okay, this meeting, my Zoom, has never had more than 100 people because we've never needed it. Okay, so our Zoom is set up for 100, because this has gotten so big tonight, and there are more people on here that are not near neighbors. The capacity was overwhelming. Okay, if we have another meeting, we will increase it to the maximum that we can, because this it obviously is an extremely large project, and a lot of people have things to say. But again, everybody is not a near neighbor here. Everybody is not impacted the way the near neighbors are. And RCOs, we take the vote of the community, but it depends on how far the community is out.
I really have several questions. Could I please?
Well, I'm just responding to that one since you directed it to me.
I understand.
So go ahead. Go ahead with the rest.
Some near neighbors, I wanted to let you know that some near neighbors were not able to get in. And
I understand that, and I'm sorry about that.
I don't want to get into a debate. I'd just like to ask Mr. Jim some questions. I'd like to know, you've been talking about the next door lot at 20, I was looking for it's 26 to 40 Church Lane, I believe. And we understand, and I'd like to know, are you doing, or is your client doing a feasibility study right now on that property?
I'm not aware of any studies on that property. I don't know if Mr. Bader would be able to answer that, but I was only involved with this particular project, and I wasn't in the
Maybe the other gentleman could answer it, please.
Chagai, are you aware of any feasibility studies being conducted at this moment?
I don't want to answer this question.
Okay. So you're not sure, or you just don't want to answer at this point?
No, we come to talk about the Church Lane. If they have any specific question about Church Lane, about the project, they can ask. It's not matter if it's going to be my project or someone else's project, if you understand what I mean.
I'd like to have transparency. I'd like to ask you, is the sale conditioned upon your getting the zoning approval?
The next door project is by right.
Oh, no,
I don't need to go.
on this property, on 46, is the sale conditioned upon your getting the property?
No.
So you will buy this property even if you don't get the zoning?
It's a business plan. I cannot answer this question.
My final question is to the lawyer.
Yes.
I'd like to know, I wondered if you would share with us, what is your basis for unnecessary hardship?
Well, from a developmental standpoint, obviously this is an industrial zone property, right? The industrial use of this property has ended. And it's unlikely another industrial use of this size will come into the property. So the property is currently not usable in its intended zoning pattern or its zoning district. Therefore, the proposal hardship starts with the fact that the land exists, but it's not used in the format or is usable in the format of the zoning that's in place. So that's why we're proposing a residential use, which is a different use from what the industrial zoning is.
I won't argue with you about that, but I just wanted to know what it was. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are your questions answered?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Guest?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. What's your address?
Yes, I live at 6374 Germantown Avenue, a block where the people seeking to develop on Church Lane have also done 2 developments. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. I also wanted to say that the feasibility study is in the proposal that we saw for this meeting. So it has been done. It's in with the proposal for the other building, and everybody can see that. And I do not appreciate the disrespect or dishonesty that's happening at this meeting. Second, I wanted to mention, I support what everybody said, near neighbors, and the whole concern about the historic district. And this project affects all of Germantown because that's the heart and soul of our historic district, Market Square. And I wanted to speak about my block where there's 2 developments already. One people are residing in from the same people involved. And there's 40 units in there with 0 parking, which for me, a senior citizen who's partially disabled, I can no longer park on my block and my car has to stay somewhere else. So that means that I have way less freedom in life. And this could happen to people over there, even with 50% parking. Second, I want to say they're now constructing renovations across the street from me, which is another 14 units with 0 parking. So, and they also are doing another building on Germantown Avenue. So they're very familiar with Germantown and they push it to the limits. And I think this is just taking it over the edge. And I think that we're being incredibly disrespected by this company, by the architect, by the lawyer or whatever at this meeting. And I think that, this is something that could get not only local news, it's going to make national news at some point because this is out of control. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go on, I have 3 more people that have their hands up. Is there anything that any of you have to say that hasn't already been said? Okay.
I'd like to say something, yeah.
Mr. Jim, there's other people ahead of you. Hold on, please.
Okay. Well,
I'm waiting. I'm trying to get to the ones who haven't spoken.
All right.
But I want you to consider that we're saying the same things, and I'm sure that they hear us or hear you.
No, I'm saying something different.
Just a minute. Just a minute, please. So I'm sure they hear you, but I want to make sure that what they hear is pretty much everything that you are concerned about. What would you like to see on this spot? Because if he's going to own it, then he has the right to build. But what would you prefer to see? Just put your information in the chat. It doesn't need to be a long conversation because this is not a voting part. But what is your interest and what would you like to see? Would you like to see, ownership, townhomes, what would you like to see?
If I could quickly just speak that there's been a lot of questions in the chat so far, a lot of good questions, none of which I've seen answers to at this point.
And that's something I was going to do at the end of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just checking to make sure.
Thank you. I've been reading and going over them. That's why I'm asking for anything new. Okay. Mr. An, you said you raised your hand. You had something different?
Yes, I know that there's some technical questions, but I'm not particularly, I'm from 5343 Leno Street. I'm about a block away. I'm not particularly interested in my property value rising as a resident here. I did not purchase this home. I'm not here to make money off of my home on Lena Street. Please note that I didn't say a housing. I'm here because this is my home and this is my community. It's a home and not a commodity. It's a community, not a financial investment. You said that the reason that 74 units rather than 140 units is just not a good return on investment. You're here to make a business, and I get that. But I need to know reasons other than real estate commodification. Can you name some other reasons other than all the technicalities? Why this would be good for a community, current neighbors?
Well, you want to develop this property at some point in some way. Leaving a industrial property vacant, which is what it's starting to head to, would not be beneficial to the community. Now, what do you put there? That's the question. Part of the reason we're applying and we're trying to ask for something before the community is because my client has his vision, what he wants, doesn't necessarily meet what the community would want. And I've been through that a lot with various zoning projects. But leaving a vacant industrial piece of land there isn't beneficial to the community either. So the goal here is obviously based on the feedbacks that we're getting to see if we can come to a mutually beneficial agreement of what can be put there that makes sense for my client and also makes sense for the community. So, and again, I know there's a lot of talk about the historical. I didn't miss that. I am trying to read some of these comments as they pop up. But, again, we understand that there's a lot of concern because of the historical fabric of the area. And as Kevin mentioned, they've done other projects where they have similar feedbacks. So when they designed the look of the building, they are trying to incorporate some of those old feedbacks they've already received in past projects in this area. So we understand the size and other issues, but from a cosmetic design standpoint, they were already trying to incorporate some of the things that people were, that have brought up before. Now, these things also change over time, so I'm aware that even with those incorporated, the look may not be to everybody's satisfaction. We understand that.
Anything else, Ms. Don? Thank you. Ms. Gina Michaels. What's your address, Ms. Michaels?
5535 Lena Street. You go down to the bottom of the block, take a left, and I'm halfway down the block.
Thank you.
And my concern is that often with this kind of development, developers propose something outrageous, knowing that it won't be built, with a built-in idea that something slightly less outrageous will then be proposed, and they'll say that that's community engagement. So I'm just concerned that that not happen. Thank you. Is there anything, would you like to speak to that concern?
Doctors.
Could I partially answer that, Jen?
Sure.
Just briefly, I just want to state from the design standpoint, from the architect's office, we put a lot of work into this project. We've been working on this for months. We completely understand that the scale and the scope of the project is significant, and there could be concerns with density, with parking, with things like that. So I can't speak to what the intent is with the number of units. I know we're asking for a lot of units here on this site. What I can say is that we have put a lot of work into this project. We certainly did not intend for this to be something where we show a scary monster building and then come back with something different. That would just be it would be a frustrating waste of time to do that. My office put a lot of work into this, a lot of thought. And again, like I said, we incorporated feedback that we've heard from other residents in the area on other similar projects. So only, again, speaking for myself, we put a lot of work into this, and I wouldn't want that to be seen as something that was done as a fake project, so to speak. We put a lot of work into this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Ramos?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I heard the comment from your attorney about the hardship and such. I'm just curious if there's been any attempt to utilize the property according to its current zoning, to find another tenant or find another business that could use it. Just wondering how it was marketed and such.
I can't personally speak to that because obviously I wasn't involved with the current owners as far as what their prior marketing is. But my understanding is they have been trying to market this for some time. I don't know if any industrial uses have even reached out to them for the property, but to my knowledge, there hasn't been a lot of activity on that particular side.
Thank you.
Quintana Shapiro?
Hi, I just wanted to raise an additional concern that I haven't heard, which is noise. We're at 78 East Church Lane, which means that the building would actually be built right around our backyard. So both on the right side of our backyard and immediately behind the backyard. We have a 4-year-old who likes to play out there. So I can't even imagine the noise that's going to come from the construction, let alone safety concerns. And after the building is erected, the rooftop, which will not be accessible, right, that all of that beautiful greenery that was designed and that has been spoken about will not be accessible to the surrounding communities, but it will be there. And I would imagine that the tenants will want to enjoy it and be up there. So I am also concerned about the noise levels that would ensue on top or after the construction. This is a very, one of the things we love about here is that it's a residential, it's a community, it's peaceful. And I fear that that would be lost completely with the entry of 300 plus people who will be on a roof, whenever, and following years or however long of construction that will be immediately behind our backyard. The only thing separating us would be a tree, and I don't even know what that would look like. I can't even conceive of what that would be like to go out in the backyard and have construction right there.
Right. So with regard to construction, I understand your concern, certainly. Regardless of what gets put there, construction may have to take place. That's the unfortunate reality. So during construction, there will be noise. And, as much as it needs to be managed, that is a side effect of any construction. Now, with regard to the rooftop, Kevin, I don't believe the rooftop is meant for people to occupy. That's why we have the interior court, correct?
There's a very small roof deck area that you can see on the roof plan, but the green roof portion of the roof is meant for stormwater management and is not intended to be occupied.
So the real occupancy, the roof, I believe it's like 500 square foot of it is a deck, something along that scale.
It's less than 1,000. It might even be 750. So that's a small occupant load for that deck. Again, most of the outdoor space is at ground level in the courtyard.
Thank you.
But there's also people who will have outward facing balconies. No.
On the side of the building, yes.
Okay, so people will be looking into the backyard. They can do what they want. They can play music. They can party. I mean, they can do whatever they want there, and that affects us.
Yeah, and also, we shared this backyard. It's, one of those Germantown situations where you're sharing the backyard with also other people, and it's, nice to have some green, and we're really lucky to have that. And it feels like the ability to actually be able to enjoy that would be destroyed, frankly.
Okay, I'm going to take the last two questions from John and Jim, and then we're going to go to the RCO part because we're going to go to the RCO part, okay? And then we're going to decide after that, okay? Because I think all your presentation has been done. We don't have to present anything else again right now. So at that point, we'll talk about it after these last two questions, and then we'll make a decision as to how we'll move forward. And Inez will take over that part. So it's John. You have a question? John?
Jim? Oh, John. Okay.
John, you have your hand up? Okay, I'm gonna come back to John. Jim.
Yes. So when the attorney was asked what the nature of the hardship was, his response was that it's an industrial site that can no longer be used as such. Sir, that's a false choice. And I would appreciate it if you would respect our intelligence and do not present us with false logic like that. The fact that no one has bought it and used it for anything industrial is because it has not been marketed. This deal has been in the works for a long time, okay? So as far as, you saying it can't be used as an industrial site anymore, that's simply not true. In fact, if the zoning change doesn't go through, that's the only thing that can happen back there. It's that it would have to be another industrial site. So, but my real point is, don't snow us. We're not stupid. Don't treat us as such.
I certainly had no intent of having it come across that way, but the legal argument for site usage has always been, I was asked very directly, how would I argue the hardship? That is the legal argument that I made, which is if an industrial site is currently used as an industrial site and has viability with, ongoing interest.
No, you said it cannot be used as an industrial site. They're your exact words. It can no longer be used as an industrial site.
Right, where the intended use isn't likely to happen, then that is where the hardship comes up for the use of the property. I mean, land use.
Who says it's not likely to happen? I mean, look, it's not likely that I'll win the lottery if I don't buy a ticket.
So the courts doesn't, we can't, yes, anything has a micro percentage chance of happening. Certainly a industrial warehouse may decide they want this piece of land for their trucking purposes or something. I understand that, but you have to look at it from how long the property has, been used, and then what is the likelihood that it will be used. And just to say that there's a small possibility that someone may be interested, that's very speculative. That doesn't directly make the property viable.
But it's also speculative to say that the possibility is small. Okay, so
folks, we're not going to have the argument back.
Okay, we're going to end this.
That's it. We're not going to have the argument back and forth.
John? We can't hear you. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
He should put his question in chat if he can't be heard.
I have so many questions in the chat. John? Okay, you can put your question in the chat, but we're going to move on. Okay?
Gerald?
Yes.
Yes, can we get Matt's question asked?
Oh, okay, Matt.
He's been
I'm
waiting.
sorry. I'm sorry, Matt.
I don't believe I have my hand raised. I just wanted to make sure that we have a general consensus as to where this meeting's going tonight, as far as the voting goes, non-voting, how we contact ZBAs, things of that nature at this point. I've fairly well made up my mind. I do want to express my disappointment about the 250-foot radius from the property, because a unit of this size, which we have dealt with in other RCOs in the neighborhood, is going to impact not only people 250 feet away, but blocks and blocks away. And I had put something down about a traffic study, which it seems to be when you increase the volume of traffic around there is going to be exorbitant, as well as the fact that, as we've seen before, that when you have, you have a 2-to-1 parking ratio, a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 or 3 to 4 people living in it, you're going to have, 3 to 4 cars per unit in some cases. And I think that's a little extreme as well. I know that's not a blocker, but my biggest concern was how we're going to go ahead with approvals or non-approvals this evening. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Inez. And she's going to do the RCO part, and she'll be able to answer those questions for you, Matt. And if nothing else needs, she can handle the rest of this. Okay, so thank you all. Inez, it's on you.
Thank you, Cheryl. As far as the RCO piece is concerned, I'd like to ask Mr. Jen and his group. You've heard several concerns tonight about the project. Are you willing to address those concerns? And are you willing to make changes that relate to that concern? And before you answer, we're not going to take a vote tonight, because I think it's important for people to get the information correctly. I think that you have an opportunity here to show that you are interested in whatever you're putting into this community, and that you are willing to work with us. I know, we all know that the units that you propose are too many. And if you're interested in doing this project, then you have to come back to the table with something that would resemble what the community is asking for. So what I would say to you, if you're willing to come back, then we will schedule another meeting. If you're not willing to make changes, then you need to tell us that now.
I think we definitely would entertain changes. It's something that's going to take time to discuss and come up with, and certainly architectural design changes take time as well. I would say that we would reach out to you again for a new meeting and not to schedule one at this moment.
When is your ZBA hearing date?
The ZBA hearing is
August the 9th.
Yeah, it's August the 9th. So we have some time before that. And given with a project of this size and with the amount of feedback we received today, we will go back and certainly start to talk about what can be done to make this project more palatable to the community. And in that case, then we'll reach back out to the RCO to schedule another meeting. We have a few months of time here that we can, work with to try to get that together. And certainly we wouldn't want to go before the CDR, the Civic Design Review, without having addressed the community concerns as well, because it would be a wasted effort on our part. So I think at this point, we would certainly appreciate that a vote's not taken, so we can go back and discuss, among the owner and developer and the architect and myself about what can we do from here. And if the ultimate decision is something that does not require another meeting, we will certainly let the RCO know.
What I would ask of you is that you do some strong consideration about these changes. Because you and I both know that this is Germantown. Everybody talks about the historic part. You guys have not touched on that. You also have not touched on the idea or the fact that you're moving into a community that is already developed in a community that is limited in terms of space. So if you want to use this property in whatever way you think you want to use it, make sure that you consider what we're saying. If you are not going to come back to the community with changes, then you need to let me know that ASAP. If that is true, then I will inform all the folks in the community that you've decided not to come back, and we'll move forward with the rest of the process, okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Any more questions or concerns, please don't ask the same thing. Just if you have something else you want to ask, please do before we end.
I want to add something on this. There were a lot of questions, and it's gotten late, but there were a lot of questions. Some of them were repeated in a different way. I can share those with the developer, and so that they know what the community is asking for. They're asking for home ownership. They're asking for setbacks. They're asking for less density. They're asking for many things that you need to consider before this entire area, or these neighbors, whether they're 250 feet in, that's what the zoning board requests, or further out. You need to consider how that's going to impact that area and the whole community of Germantown. You need to consider, you need to pay special attention to what the neighbors have talked about extending your property or adding to your property because you own multiple properties on that block. I can share this information, but those are some of the things that they came up with. Those are some of the things that they spoke about. Those are some of the things that are, dear to their heart. So we move forward at your discretion.
They also talked about affordable housing, the issue of the setback. I think you already said that. Excuse me. And of course, the amount of units. So, Mr. Jen?
Yes.
I'll give you a week to get back to me.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate your attendance. Hopefully, we can get this matter squared away soon. When the next meeting is scheduled, you'll be notified, especially those.
Thank you so much for holding this meeting.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
I'm going to give the
Thank you,
host back
Ines.
to Ms.
Thank
Love.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the meeting.
Thank you.
Specific plans, and we're starting with you, Cindy. What specific
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Jen. You too.